You've been sold a lie, a comfortable, socially acceptable lie that keeps you weak. They told you that isolation is failure, that if you're alone, something is wrong with you, that successful people are surrounded by teams, mentors, networks, a tribe that lifts them up. Look around, observe what actually happens to people who build their lives on the foundation of support systems. They become negotiators of permission. They spend more energy managing relationships than building competence. They celebrate collaboration while secretly resenting the weight of other people's incompetence on their shoulders. 500 years ago, a Florentine diplomat named Niccolò Machiavelli wrote something so threatening to the social order that the Catholic Church banned his work. He didn't write about evil, he wrote about power. And one of his most dangerous observations was this: the prince who depends on others to maintain his position will lose it the moment those others change their calculations. Today, we're going to dismantle the illusion that you need support to succeed. We're going to reveal the hidden architecture that makes lone wolves more dangerous, more capable, and more free than any pack could ever be. This isn't motivational content, this is operational philosophy, and once you see how dependency has been weaponized against you, you cannot unsee it. Most people will watch this video and feel uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is the price of evolution. The question is whether you'll pay it or retreat back into the warm narcotic of community and belonging. Let's find out which you are. You were raised in a culture that celebrates interdependence. From childhood, you were taught that asking for help is strength, that collaboration is superior to solo work, that no man is an island. Every institution reinforced this. Schools grouped you into teams. Corporate environments measured your ability to work well with others. Social media taught you that your value is determined by how many people publicly align with you. But here's what they didn't tell you. Every single relationship built on support creates a dependency tax you'll pay for years. When someone helps you, they're not being generous. They're making an investment. You now owe them, not legally, socially, emotionally. The debt is invisible, but the interest compounds. They'll collect eventually. Maybe they'll ask for a favor you don't want to give. Maybe they'll expect loyalty when your interests diverge. Maybe they'll simply expect gratitude that never expires. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago. He wrote, "Men are less hesitant about harming someone who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared, because love is held together by a chain of obligation, which, since men are wicked, is broken at every opportunity for personal gain." Translation: people who help you are building chains. They call it support. Machiavelli called it what it is: leverage. The person who gives you a ladder to climb expects to control where you climb, and the moment you climb somewhere they didn't approve, they'll remind you whose ladder it was. Now, observe your own life. How many decisions have you made or not made because of who helped you get where you are? How many times have you suppressed your true direction because it would offend the people who supported you? How many opportunities have you declined because accepting them would make you appear ungrateful to your current circle? This is the dependency tax. You're paying it right now. Every compromised decision, every bite of your tongue, every strategic silence to avoid rocking the boat. You're not being diplomatic, you're being owned. The lone wolf pays no such tax. When you build competence without relying on others, you own nothing. Your decisions are yours. Your direction is yours. Your failures belong to you, yes, but so do your victories. And victories you own completely are worth more than shared successes where you're perpetually indebted. Here's the brutal truth they don't want you to realize. The people offering you the most support often have the most to gain from your dependence. They're not investing in your success. They're investing in your gratitude, your loyalty, your predictability. Machiavelli advised princes to build their own armies rather than rely on mercenaries, because mercenaries serve gold, not the prince. The same applies to your life. People who help you are serving their own interests. The moment helping you stops serving those interests, the help evaporates. You must become hydraulic, self-contained, a closed system that generates its own pressure. This doesn't mean refusing all help. It means never structuring your capability around the assumption that help will continue. Build as if you're alone. If help arrives, treat it as temporary ammunition, not permanent infrastructure. Stop seeking mentors. Start studying sources. A mentor wants credit for your success and influence over your path. A book, a historical figure, a philosophical framework. These give you knowledge without demanding ownership of how you use it. Machiavelli is dead. He wants nothing from you. His insights cost you nothing but attention. This is why they push networking so hard, because networked people are controllable people. They have social collateral to protect. They can be leveraged through reputation. But the lone wolf, the one who built everything himself, he's a ghost. No social collateral, no reputation to threaten, no network to pressure him into compliance. You're beginning to see it now. The isolation you felt wasn't a bug. It was the system detecting that you're not controllable through normal social channels. Your lack of support isn't evidence of unworthiness. It's evidence that you haven't sold yourself enough to make supporting you a good investment for others. That's not a problem. That's an advantage, if you're willing to architect around it. Let's talk about why people who operate alone develop capabilities that groups never can. This is about the economics of irreplaceability. When you have a team, you specialize. Marketing person does marketing, finance person does finance, tech person does tech. This seems efficient. It's not. It's fragile. Each specialist becomes a single point of failure, and worse, each specialist remains ignorant of the other domains, unable to see how the pieces actually fit together. You see this everywhere. Companies with communication problems between departments, startups that collapse when one key person leaves, projects that fail because the person who understands the vision can't execute, and the person who can execute doesn't understand the vision. Now observe the person who builds alone. No marketing department, they learn marketing. No technical co-founder, they learn to code. No financial advisor, they learn financial modeling. Not to expert level in each, but to dangerous competence across all of them. This creates something remarkable: range, the ability to see how different domains intersect, to make decisions that optimize for the whole system, not just one department's KPIs, to speak every language in the organization because you are the organization. Machiavelli saw this principle in military strategy. He wrote extensively about why princes who rely on mercenary armies lose their states, while princes who build their own forces keep them. The mercenary fights for payment. When payment stops or a better offer arrives, loyalty evaporates. But the citizen soldier fights for his own land, his own future. He cannot be outbid. Translation: when you are the only person responsible for your success, you develop skin in the game that employees, partners, and collaborators never have. Your competence isn't specialized, it's integrated. You're not just good at one thing, you're dangerous across multiple domains because you had to be. This is the lone wolf advantage. You're not better than specialists at their specialty, but you're better than all of them at seeing the full battlefield. You know where marketing touches product, touches finance, touches distribution. You see the gaps, you exploit the inefficiencies, you make decisions faster because you don't need to schedule meetings to get consensus from people who only understand their silo. Think about what happens in a crisis. The team argues about whose department's priority should win. Specialists protect their territory. Politics emerges. Meanwhile, the lone operator just pivots. No debate. No territorial defense, just execution based on what the situation demands. Here's what this means practically. If you're building something alone right now, you're not behind the people with teams. You're developing asymmetric capability they'll never have. They're learning to be excellent at one thing. You're learning to be dangerous at everything necessary. Stop apologizing for not having a team. Start weaponizing the fact that you don't need one. Every skill you're forced to learn because you have no choice becomes permanent equity in your capability stack. The person who learns sales because they had no salesperson understands sales differently than someone whose job is only sales. They understand it in context, in relationship to product, to market, to timing. Machiavelli understood that the prince who personally understands warfare, even if he has generals, makes better strategic decisions than the prince who only understands diplomacy. Integration of knowledge across domains is power. Specialization is vulnerability, dressed up as efficiency. You know what's interesting? The most valuable people in any organization are the ones who understand multiple domains. They're called translators or bridges or strategic thinkers. But these people are rare inside organizations because organizations structurally prevent this kind of learning. They put you in a box and reward you for staying there. The lone wolf has no box. Every problem is their problem. Every domain is their domain. This forced generalism creates something the market desperately wants but rarely finds: people who can see the whole game. Here's your competitive edge. While they're building teams and managing specialists, you're becoming the specialist in integration, in synthesis, in seeing how pieces fit together. This is rarer and more valuable than being excellent at any single piece. You're not trying to be better than the best marketer at marketing. You're trying to be the person who understands marketing well enough to know what questions to ask, what metrics matter, and how it serves the larger strategy. Then you do the same for finance, for product, for operations, for distribution. Alone, you're forced to become a generalist. In a world of specialists, the intelligent generalist is king. This takes longer, yes. It's harder, absolutely. But what you're building is anti-fragile. A team can quit. A specialist can be poached. But your knowledge is integrated into your decision-making architecture. It can't be extracted. It can't leave. It is you. That's irreplaceability, and irreplaceability is the foundation of sovereignty. Now, we need to discuss something darker, something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: the loyalty paradox. You've been taught that loyalty is valuable, that building a loyal team, a loyal network, a loyal following is the path to sustained success. Everyone preaches loyalty: loyal customers, loyal employees, loyal friends. But here's what Machiavelli knew and what you need to understand. Human loyalty is expensive to produce, fragile to maintain, and it evaporates the moment it becomes costly to continue. Look at what happens in reality. The loyal employee leaves when a competitor offers 20% more. The loyal business partner renegotiates terms the moment market conditions shift in their favor. The loyal friend disappears when your status drops and associating with you becomes socially expensive. Machiavelli wrote, "Friendships that are acquired by payments and not by greatness or nobility of mind may indeed be earned, but they are not secured, and in time of need cannot be relied upon." Translation: loyalty purchased through benefits, salary, opportunities, status by association is rental loyalty. It expires when payments stop. It's not actually loyalty. It's an ongoing transaction disguised as relationship. This is why leaders exhaust themselves trying to keep the team happy. They're not managing performance. They're managing the cost of continued loyalty. Every team member is constantly calculating whether staying is still their best option. Every relationship is a negotiation that never ends. Do you know what this looks like in practice? The entrepreneur who spends more time managing egos than building product. The leader who makes strategic compromises to avoid key people quitting. the person who can't pivot their business because it would upset the team they've spent years assembling. This is the loyalty tax. You pay it in energy, in compromised decisions, in strategic paralysis. You pay it every time you choose what keeps people happy over what actually needs to be done. Now contrast this with the lone wolf. Who do they need to keep loyal? No one. Who do they need to manage? Themselves. Who will quit if the direction changes? Nobody, because there is nobody. The decisions become clean, pure, based on what works, not what preserves relationships, based on reality, not on maintaining the complex emotional ecosystem required to keep a group functional. Machiavelli observed that it's better to be feared than loved, because fear is cheap to maintain and doesn't depend on the other person's emotional state. But there's a deeper level. It's better to be independent than either feared or loved, because independence requires no one else's cooperation to maintain. People misunderstand Machiavelli. They think he was advocating cruelty. He wasn't. He was advocating for not structuring your power around other people's voluntary continued cooperation, because that cooperation is always conditional, always negotiable, always one bad quarter away from evaporating. Here's what happens when you build alone. You develop loyalty to principles, not people. Loyalty to results, not relationships. This sounds cold. It is cold. It's also unbreakable. Principles don't quit. Results don't get poached by competitors. Your commitment to excellence doesn't leave you for a better offer. Think about the catastrophic failures you've witnessed. How many of them came down to someone's loyalty breaking at the critical moment? The co-founder who left with half the company's IP, the key employee who jumped ship right before launch, the partner who renegotiated terms when you were most vulnerable. Every single one of these disasters stems from the same architectural flaw: dependency on another person's continued willingness to cooperate. You built a structure that required their loyalty, and loyalty failed, because it always does, eventually, when tested hard enough. The lone wolf architect builds differently. Every system assumes zero loyalty from anyone. Every process is designed to function if everyone disappeared tomorrow. Every relationship is treated as temporary ammunition, not permanent infrastructure. This doesn't mean being antisocial. It means being architectural about how you engage. Use people's skills, compensate them fairly for specific deliverables, but never, ever build your capability around the assumption that they'll still be there next year. You're starting to see why successful people often seem cold, aren't you? They're not sociopaths. They're architects who learned this lesson expensively. They paid the loyalty tax, got burned, and rebuilt their entire operational philosophy around not needing anyone's sustained cooperation. Machiavelli's prince doesn't trust loyalty. He creates conditions where people's self-interest aligns with his goals temporarily, extracts value during that alignment, and expects the alignment to break. He's never surprised by betrayal because he never believed in loyalty in the first place. This is freedom, not the freedom to be cruel, the freedom from vulnerability to other people's changing calculations. When you need no one's loyalty, no one can leverage the threat of withdrawal against you. Stop trying to build loyalty. Start building systems that don't require it. Let's discuss perhaps the most powerful and least understood advantage of operating without visible support: invisibility. In a world where everyone broadcasts their affiliations, their networks, their squad, the person with no visible team becomes a strategic ghost, unreadable, unpredictable, impossible to map. Think about how people assess threats and opportunities. They look at who you're connected to, who you're funded by, who you're partnered with, who's on your team. These associations tell them your likely moves, your constraints, your loyalties, your vulnerabilities. A startup with venture capital funding, their moves are predictable. They need to hit growth metrics. They'll sacrifice profitability for scale. They're constrained by board expectations. You can outmaneuver them by understanding their investors' timeline. A person with a high-profile mentor, their strategic direction will align with that mentor's philosophy. Their opportunities will flow through that network. You can predict their next move by understanding their mentor's interests. But the lone wolf? No affiliations, no visible backing, no public alliances. Where's the funding coming from? Unknown. What are the constraints? Unclear. What's the strategic philosophy? Impossible to determine from external observation. This is weaponized opacity. You're not hiding, you're just not announcing your architecture. And in a world where everyone overshares their strategy, silence is disorienting to competitors. Machiavelli practiced this personally. He worked for the Florentine Republic. Then he worked for the Medici family, who overthrew that republic. He maintained relationships with multiple competing power centers simultaneously. People couldn't pin him down. Was he a Republican, a monarchist, an opportunist? He was an operator, and operators maintain strategic flexibility by avoiding rigid public alignment. The moment you publicly commit to a faction, an ideology, a network, you've announced your constraints. Everyone now knows where you can't go, what you can't do, who you can't afford to offend. The lone wolf announces nothing, commits to nothing publicly, maintains freedom to pivot in any direction without betraying allies, violating partnerships, or breaking with a network. Because there are no allies to betray, no partnerships to violate, no network to break with. Here's what this looks like practically. While everyone else is posting about their collaborations, their investors, their team, their advisors, you're just quietly executing. They are building social proof. You're building operational capacity. They're managing their public brand. You're solving actual problems. 6 months later, you've shipped, while they are still negotiating terms with partners and managing the politics of collaboration. They spent their energy on coordination. You spent yours on creation. There's another layer to this. When you have a visible team, competitors can target your weak points. They can recruit your best people. They can cut deals with your partners. They can exploit tensions in their network. Every public relationship is a surface area for attack. What can they target on the lone wolf? Nothing. There's no team to poach, no partners to flip, no network to infiltrate. You're a smooth surface, no handholds for attack, no leverage points for disruption. Machiavelli wrote about fortresses. He argued that the best fortress is not to be hated by the people. But there's a deeper principle. The best defense is having nothing external that can be seized, no relationships that can be corrupted, no dependencies that can be cut. You become like water, formless, impossible to grasp, impossible to pin down. Bruce Lee said this about martial arts. Machiavelli knew it about power. When you have no fixed form, you can't be countered. When your strategy isn't telegraphed through your associations, it can't be predicted. This drives people crazy, by the way. Humans are pattern recognition machines. They need to categorize you. When you operate alone, when you don't fit into recognizable structures, when you have no obvious backers or affiliations, they can't model you. They can't predict you. They can't comfortably dismiss you. You're an anomaly, and anomalies are dangerous because they don't behave according to known rules. Here's the test. Can someone looking at your public presence determine your next move? Can they figure out your constraints? Can they identify who you depend on? If yes, you're readable. Readable means counterable. Counterable means beatable. The lone wolf is unreadable, not because of deception, because of simplicity. There's just you, your capability, your execution, no complex web of relationships to decode, no organizational politics to exploit, no partners whose interests might diverge from yours. This is the invisibility advantage. You're operating in plain sight, but your actual architecture is opaque. Your moves are unpredictable. Your loyalties are unclear. Your next pivot could go anywhere because you're not constrained by having to bring a team, a network, or investors along with you. Stop broadcasting your connections. Stop announcing your partnerships. Stop building a public network. Start moving in silence. Start building in private. Start shipping without the performance of collaboration. Visibility is for brands. Invisibility is for operators. Choose which you want to be. Now, we build the complete architecture. Everything we've discussed has been diagnosis. This is the blueprint for operational sovereignty. This is how you actually construct a life that requires no one's permission, no one's loyalty, no one's continued cooperation. This is self-reliance as engineered system, not motivational concept. First principle, stackable competence. You must deliberately build skills that multiply each other's value rather than existing in isolation. Most people learn randomly, whatever job requires, whatever interests them momentarily. This creates a scattered capability profile. Useless. You need to engineer your learning. Ask, what skills create compounding advantage when combined? Writing and psychology, code and design, sales and analytics, strategy and execution. Each pair is exponentially more valuable than either skill alone. Here's how to implement this. Identify the 3 domains most critical to your specific objective, not generically useful, specifically necessary for your game. Then reach dangerous competence in all 3. Dangerous competence means you're good enough to see what excellence looks like, good enough to execute at 70% of expert level, good enough to know when to push deeper versus when to delegate. Most people try to become world-class at one thing. This is the specialist trap. You're building integration capability, not specialist capability. Your edge is seeing how domains connect, not being the best in any single domain. Machiavelli mastered diplomacy, military strategy, and political philosophy. This combination let him see what pure diplomats, pure soldiers, and pure philosophers couldn't see. He operated in the white space between disciplines. That's where leverage lives. Second principle, multiple resource streams. You cannot be sovereign if you depend on a single source of income, a single client, a single platform, a single anything. Every dependency is a control point. Every control point is a vulnerability. Build as if your primary income could disappear tomorrow, because it can. The job ends, the client leaves, the platform changes algorithms, the market shifts. If losing any single resource stream would destroy you, you're not self-reliant, you're just temporarily comfortable. Here's the implementation. Engineer at least 3 income streams that don't share failure modes. Employment and freelancing share the same failure mode. You trade time for money, and capacity is capped. Employment and product business don't share failure modes. One scales with time, the other scales with distribution. This isn't about working more, it's about architecting differently. It's about building systems that generate value without your continuous presence. It's about creating asymmetric returns, where effort compounds rather than resets every Monday. Machiavelli advised princes to control their own military rather than rely on mercenaries or auxiliaries, because reliance on other soldiers meant their power could be withdrawn. The same applies to your resources. If you don't own the mechanism that generates your income, you're a mercenary in someone else's war. Third principle, psychological sovereignty. This is the hardest. You must develop immunity to social punishment, because the moment you stop depending on people, they will attempt to punish you back into dependence through social pressure. They'll call you selfish, arrogant, cold, antisocial, difficult. These aren't observations, they're attacks. They're attempts to impose social cost for your independence. Most people break under this pressure. They return to dependence because independence is socially expensive. You must build tolerance for being misunderstood, for being excluded, for having your choices criticized by people whose approval you used to seek. This tolerance isn't built through affirmations or mindset work. It's built through repeated exposure and desensitization. Start small. Make a decision you know will be unpopular. Observe the social punishment. Survive it. Notice that you're still functional. Repeat with larger decisions. You're building scar tissue. You're training your nervous system that social disapproval isn't dangerous. Machiavelli was imprisoned, tortured, and exiled. His work was banned. He was called evil for centuries. He wrote anyway. He thought anyway. He observed reality anyway, because his commitment to understanding power was stronger than his need for approval. This is what you're building toward, not sociopathy, but independence from the need for validation. You can receive feedback, you can consider input, but you cannot need approval. The moment you need it, you're controllable. Fourth principle, reputation through results, not relationships. Most people build reputation through association. They're credible because they worked at the right companies, studied at the right schools, know the right people. This is borrowed credibility. It's fragile. Build reputation through documented wins, through public work, through outcomes that speak for themselves. This takes longer, it's harder, but it's permanent. No one can revoke it. It doesn't depend on maintaining relationships or affiliations. Here's the implementation. Make your work public. Write, build, ship, create artifacts that demonstrate capability independent of context. Stop focusing on who you know. Start focusing on what you've done that anyone can verify. When your reputation is built on results, your platform independent, you can move between industries, between companies, between markets, and your track record moves with you. But when your reputation is built on relationships, it's geographically and socially locked. Leave the network, lose the credibility. Fifth principle, the Fortuna Protocol. Machiavelli wrote extensively about fortuna, luck, fate, circumstance. His key insight, Fortuna controls about half of your outcomes, but she yields to those who are prepared to act decisively when opportunity appears. Translation, you cannot control circumstances, but you can control your readiness to exploit circumstances when they shift in your favor. Most people wait for perfect conditions. The conditions never arrive, or they arrive and the person isn't prepared to capitalize. Build readiness, maintain liquidity, financial, temporal, psychological. Keep skills sharp, keep options open, keep resources uncommitted, so that when the moment comes, when the market shifts, when the opportunity opens, you can move before others even finish analyzing. This is why debt is dangerous, why long-term commitments are expensive, why complexity is vulnerability. Each reduces your ability to pivot fast when Fortuna smiles. The lone wolf stays light, stays liquid, stays ready. You've now seen the complete architecture: stackable competence, multiple resource streams, psychological sovereignty, reputation through results, readiness for Fortuna. These aren't motivational concepts, they're engineering principles, and they work exactly as well as you implement them. Most people will hear this and do nothing. They'll agree with the concepts intellectually, they'll nod along, they'll maybe even share it, but they won't implement, because implementation means sacrifice. It means choosing competence over comfort. It means choosing sovereignty over support. It means choosing to be misunderstood rather than accepted. The knowledge is cheap. The execution is expensive. Information is abundant. Implementation is rare. Most people collect strategies the way others collect stamps, for the pleasure of possession, not for use. Are you most people? Here's how you know. 3 months from now, will you have built a new skill that stacks with your existing capabilities? Will you have created a second income stream with a different failure mode than your primary? Will you have made a decision that cost you social approval but served your actual interests? Will you have shipped something public that demonstrates capability? Or will you still be where you are now, with more information but identical execution? The lone wolf doesn't announce his journey. He doesn't seek permission to begin. He doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. He simply starts, quietly, invisibly, relentlessly. And 5 years later, while everyone else is still building consensus and managing teams and negotiating partnerships, he's already crossed the territory they're still mapping. This channel exists for the people who choose execution over explanation, who choose building over belonging, who understand that the price of sovereignty is high, but the alternative, perpetual dependence on others' continued goodwill, is far more expensive. Behind the subscribe button is a library of strategic frameworks, too sharp for people who prefer comfortable illusions. Most won't join. That's intentional. This isn't for most people. It's for the architects, the ones building in silence while others broadcast their intentions, the ones who understand that true power isn't loud. You've seen the architecture. Now decide if you'll build it, or decide you won't, and return to seeking support from people who will leverage that support the moment it serves them. Both paths are available. Only one leads to sovereignty, and you already know which one that is.